Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, with the end of meteorological winter and the beginning of meteorological spring, which happens on March 1st here, we can see that our last weekend here of winter kind of gave us a quick dash of snow that came out of the north and west and piling up in parts of the Appalachian Mountains there and parts of western North Carolina. We did get some locations picking up between 2, in some locations even upwards of 4 inches of snow. Now, we need to put this in perspective of the whole of this winter, though. So I want to do that by showing you this map, which was valid through the beginning of the weekend. And what it shows you is the snowfall deficit that we have seen so far this winter. And despite the snowfall that we did get about a week ago that moved through the eastern part of the state, overall, we're still sitting with a deficit on the whole. And you can see there in parts of the Appalachian Mountains that do get up into even into West Virginia are in some locations sitting at over a 30-inch deficit. So this has certainly been a winter that has featured milder air. So the cooler air that we had over the last 5 days was actually quite anomalous, and that's the map you're looking at here. This is showing you the last 5 days leading up to early this morning in terms of temperatures compared to normal, and it really kind of bucks the longer-term trend of winter, which look more like this. This map shows you, since the start of 2020, the percentage of days where we had temperatures above average. So you can see that much of the state of North Carolina was averaging 70 to almost 80% of the days over the last 60 days, so since the start of 2020, with above average conditions. So the brief cool down we have was just that. It was relatively brief. Well, we will remember the beginning of this year as being is very wet. So this is looking at the last 30 days of total accumulated precipitation, and we can see that much of the state of North Carolina saw between 6 and in some locations over a foot of rainfall just in the last 30 days. And this is going to be a critical part of this upcoming forecast, because right now, when we just look at what winter's given us so far, the numbers you see in each one of these rectangles represents the rank. We have a lot of weather stations that have a very long history here, and we're seeing a lot of the weather stations reporting since December 1st of 2019 all the way through the end of February, a top 5 to top 10 wettest winters so far. So as we begin spring, our discussion now turns to maps like these, and we're going to watch them very carefully. What you're looking at here is the next 5 days, so this gets us out to next Saturday morning, looking at total accumulated precipitation. And you probably saw weather reports over the weekend continuing to kind of knock back total accumulated precipitation amounts, because at the end of last week, we were seeing much heavier rainfall amounts extending much farther to the north with this next system, and that of course was going to clip through North Carolina here. But as you can tell, the heaviest rainfall is now set to be from parts of western Texas all the way over to South Carolina, where we could be picking up in that stretch anywhere between 1.5 inches and 3 inches of rainfall. So the question is, why is the difference? Well, let me take you back to last week. There's a pretty cool meteorological lesson in this. Here's some of the big features we're going to be talking about. Our greatest kind of anchor to cold air is still sitting over Alaska and the Arctic, and also over Greenland. One of the features we've been watching most carefully has been this ridge. Now, in our forecast for this week that we made a week ago, we were seeing the ridge in place here, and it was feeding into this northern trough and also this one that's down here to the south. And the stronger winds coming around the base of the northern trough were helping to pull the southern trough along with it, and this was supposed to lift very quickly to the northeast, and these two things were going to work together in tandem, heading on off to the north and east part of the United States. This was also increasing the probability that throughout this week we were going to see inside of the oval I just drew here a whole lot more flooding, rain, and the daily risk of severe weather Monday through Thursday. Now, what has changed in the forecast? Well, this is critical. This is the newest forecast. You see that ridge has broadened out a bit, and that's pushed this leading trough farther to the east. You see it here? And allowed the southern trough to completely cut off. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that these two systems are no longer working together, and the first trough is going to go squeaking through here the northeast pretty quickly, and the southern trough is going to just slowly move over here toward the Carolinas by the end of this week. The problem is going to be that the lead wave, this one here, as it moves toward the north and east, is going to leave a boundary here, which means we're going to see a pretty soggy week across this section, and that includes North Carolina here. The good news is this changes the severe weather threat. So as what you're looking at here, this is the Storm Prediction Center's maps for day 2 and day 3. So this would be Tuesday over here, and this would be Wednesday over here on the right. This is flattened out, made more west to east, the orientation of the severe weather threat, and it's also kept it farther to the south. And by the time we do get into Thursday, as the cutoff low moves over toward the Carolinas, The severe weather threat on Thursday is going to be confined much farther to the south, primarily over Florida. So I am not anticipating this week any sort of sizable activity in terms of severe weather, but we will be getting some showers and thunderstorms most certainly. So the question is how much? Well, this is the latest operational European model run telling us how much we should anticipate by early Saturday morning. And what we can see here is that generally across the state, 1/3 of an inch to some locations as you farther south you go or even farther east you go, sitting around 1 inch to 1.5 inches in these areas. Much wetter conditions, though, when you get into South Carolina, Georgia, and back over toward Alabama, where the potential exists for 2 to 4 inches of total accumulated precipitation out of this next system. So let's watch it, take a look at what's going on here. Early this morning, the main moisture transport was coming right up the lower Mississippi River Valley, as you can see there. And we're going to watch throughout early morning this morning, rain moving through Tennessee and Kentucky. When does it finally get over the mountains? Well, maybe not until late this afternoon and this evening as it pushes widely scattered showers through much of North Carolina. So that's what I'm rocking back and forth over here, late this afternoon through this evening. Now, with system number 1 starting to really take shape here, as it moves over toward the north and east, there's going to be just this kind of lingering boundary sitting in this area throughout much of this week. So watch what I mean by that. As we get into the early morning hours on Tuesday, still widely scattered showers across North Carolina as we're still dealing with the pull of moisture to the north here and this lingering frontal boundary sitting in this area. So we see this week into Tuesday evening, getting now into Wednesday morning, that finally a brief break in the precipitation may occur by the time we get into Wednesday morning for North Carolina. But here comes the cutoff low. You can see it right there. In fact, watch it just come out of the Baja. It takes 60 hours to get from the Baja of California all the way to southern Texas, which means this will continue to be a slow mover because it is cut off from the flow by the taking its dear sweet time to get over to North Carolina by the end of the week. So we got to switch to the European model to see that. So let's get right to where we just left off, which is here, Wednesday morning. Okay, at that time, the cutoff low is in Texas, and you can see it slowly pushing rainfall across the southern region of the United States into Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And for the most part, as I just rock back and forth here between Wednesday and Thursday, you see the heaviest rainfall is to the south. It's in the southern part of North Carolina. And again, there's a little bit of rainfall Tuesday night coming into the eastern part of the state right here. So we've seen this, okay? Now watch what happens here. As we get toward the end of the week, this is now Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon and evening, getting into Friday. That's when that little cutoff starts to pull a little bit farther to the north and increases our precipitation chances again. But remember, it's primarily the southern half of the state that has the best chance of seeing the most rainfall this week. Now, as I get you into your weekend, watch what happens. You see the broader trough that's now sitting over the north and east as it sweeps through, pulling this system here to the north. That's our cutoff with the second system behind it. Watch this. This is Friday afternoon and evening, getting into Saturday morning. And now we start to see from Friday night to Saturday morning, snow pushing up against the Appalachian Mountains here on this high pressure cell that's behind it. And that may give us a chance at getting some snow here again. But with any snow we've had so far this year, it's been very brief and not really piling up too much. And what do we notice? By Saturday afternoon and evening, getting into Sunday, yep, we got a cooler weekend coming up next weekend. But that high pressure cell slides off to the east, sits over North Carolina by Monday, keeping things dry early next week. But if it moves over to the east, that turns the heat back on, returns the moisture to the midsection of the country, and we get another big system pulling through middle of the week next week. So I'm talking here about March 9th, 10th, and 11th. So that's kind of a quick rundown here of what to anticipate in terms of precipitation. From there, let's just take a look at the probability of getting at least 1 inch of snow. Let's just look at that probability through Saturday morning. So remember, we're going to be watching this area toward the very end of the week and the start of the weekend for the best chance at getting a little bit of snow piling up here in the higher elevations of the Appalachian Mountains. So I just want to give you that update on what we're anticipating for snow. Now, here's the main player. As we get out into Saturday, the main things I want you to watch are these. 1, the ridge over the Gulf of Alaska has moved. It's now pushed itself over to the Aleutian Islands. That's allowed our coldest air, which has been sitting here again in the Arctic, to drop a trough here. But you see there's a disconnect between that cold air sitting over the North Pole and what's going on the East Coast. So it's only this combination of that cutoff low combined with the systems that are coming here through the Canadian prairies, where they meet together and give us that cold shot toward the end of the week, and that's what gives us the potential for some snow in the Appalachian Mountains. But you can see the ridge sitting behind this. And let's just see what that ridge does by the time we get out here to day 10. So this is now valid in the evening on March 11th. Our ridge is still pushed back here over the Aleutian Islands. Main anchors of cold sitting in the North Atlantic and the Arctic, and drops a trough here along the west coast of the United States. Now this is critical for California, a place that has likely seen, unlike North Carolina, its driest February on record. And in addition to that, the snowpack in this year in Nevada is only sitting about 50%. So while we're seeing deficits in the Appalachian Mountains of 30 to 40 inches on the year, the highest peaks, of course, 30 to 40 inches, parts of the Sierra Nevada are right now sitting at a deficit of 200 inches. And so this flow pattern returning moisture to California will be absolutely critical. But the question is, what does it do to our longer term prospects on precipitation in North Carolina? So as we now look out to the second full week of the month of March, so this is going to basically get us from the 8th through the 15th, we see that with the pattern dipping that trough back like this, okay? So the flow is going to do that. Subtropical branch is still cutting underneath it. We're still maintaining a wetter bias for everywhere inside that circle I just drew. So it doesn't appear as though the pattern is going to slow down and allow us to just dry out for an extended time period here as we progress through the month of March. What's important about this is just to know what we've already got in the soil. So this is a look at the end of February at what the calculated soil moisture anomalies look like here. Remember, this is in millimeters, so 100 millimeters represents about 4 inches. Generally across the state, we're seeing an excess of about 2 to 3 inches of excess water in the topsoil. And compared to a year ago, technically by the end of March, it was even wetter. So a year ago at the end of March, things were much wetter. So that's what you're looking at here across the state of North Carolina and across the whole of the United States, in fact. So we'll keep a very close eye on this March pattern because it does not appear at this point that it's going to slow down and give us extended periods of drier weather. When we look at what the temperatures are going to do, you'll be able to see the effect of that cutoff low and the cooler weather toward the end of the weekend. But by the time we get into the warmth of the day, generally the state's looking at about a 5 to 10 degree above average temperature pattern through the day on Monday. Now, as we slide into the week, let's see here. Here's Tuesday's departure from normal. Again, another 5 to 10 degrees above average. Wednesday, but here comes that cutoff low. Remember, it's coming right here from the Baja into Texas, and it's going to slide here across South Carolina. So this is Wednesday's departures from normal for high temperatures. We can then see by Thursday, that's where we have the beginning of our cool down at the end of the week. So there's Thursday, Friday, into Saturday. So what's going to start off with a relatively milder pattern earlier this week is going to trend, as you can see here, toward cooler conditions as we get into Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with the coolest weather coming in over the weekend. But with that ridge rebuilding back in the midsection of the country, we know that the pattern is not established to bring in any sort of sustained cold. And that's why when I look out here to days 5 through 10, we just have the influence here of what was left over of that cooler weather, but the warmth building behind it means as we get out here to day 10 through 15, in other words, mid-March, the chances for us seeing near average to above average temperatures are high as we see the main trough axis coming back like this. So again, the flow of the atmosphere is doing something like this, with the subtropical branch coming underneath it. Nothing right now telling me to make a call for any sort of sustained cooler than average weather. And that's why I wrote down for you at the top there what our teleconnections are doing. MJO, staying in its warm phases for North Carolina. Global winds remain high, and the translation there means we're going to continue to see active weather systems moving across the United States. I'm not getting much of a signal at all from El Nino and Southern Oscillation, but we still have the same issues we've been dealing with all winter. That is the very strong North Atlantic Oscillation and the near record-setting Arctic Oscillation, which basically says that the polar vortex has been strong and undisrupted. If we're going to watch anything, it's going to be what's going on in the Gulf of Alaska and its eventual path cutting through California as setting up our active weather for the rest of March. So if there's something to discuss in relationship to this, I want you to keep a close eye on ocean temperatures. So if we just take a look really long term here for a moment, I want you to know that in this section of our equatorial tropical Pacific, this is Niño region 4 and 3.4, we have warmer than average conditions. But we have seen throughout much of this winter cooler water tucked away here along the west coast of South America and the emergence of cooler water in through this area. Now, this is all that I want to say, and I'm not trying to be alarmist here. I'm just kind of putting something out there that I want to be watching with everybody. We do know that right now in a big section of the Western Atlantic Basin, we have warmer than average conditions, including in the Gulf, the Caribbean, and a wide swath here of the open Atlantic. If we continue to see ocean waters cool inside the area that I'm striping here, and the atmosphere responds by increasing the trade winds, which go this way, that will be an indicator that we could potentially be seeing an above average hurricane season. It's just one of the many, many pieces that go into this. I just want you all, now that we're starting March and spring is on its way here, I really want to start talking about this, any sort of preseason indicators. But let's come back to March as we finish up what we're talking about here in the United States. This is now looking March 10th through April 10th. Got precipitation anomalies on the left and temperature anomalies that are on the right from the European model. You can see with that ridge retreating and the development of the trough out here, this is going to keep things quite active in California. The subtropical branch runs underneath it. They kind of work together here, and that's what's going to keep this section of the United States away from any sort of a drier bias as we progress through the next 45 days or so. But with the trough out west, our chances of us seeing near normal to above average temperatures everywhere inside that oval, which of course includes North Carolina, is going to be relatively high. So it looks as though the spring pattern we've been in, which is one where if there's cold air, it only lasts for a few days, is going to be the continuation. We're going to see a continuation of that pattern over the next 40 days or so. All right. From there, I want to show you what's going on elsewhere around the world. Just remember, when we're talking about Australia, the more productive ground is here and here. But we're watching what has now become extra tropical storm Esther. And Esther, over the next 5 to 7 days, is going to be sliding right through this region. Remember, this is where we had all those fires earlier. And so this is going to be causing major flooding problems, which has been the mainstay of weather that we've had in this part of Australia since we have ended those fires. Meanwhile, the southwestern corner, very productive ground where I just put that X, looking quite dry over the next 7 days. Europe continues on its same path. Very active weather in parts of Western Europe, but overall this winter has featured, I'll just draw another circle here, in and around the Black Sea, some locations in there. Well, I know I told you North Carolina's had 70 to 80% of its days above average. There are some sections in and around the Black Sea that have had nearly every day since the start of 2020 having above average temperatures. So we're talking 90+% of the days. It's incredible. To finish up, I want to just take you quick to South America. You can pause the video and read some of the comments I have over there on the right. What's most critical about this forecast is that for planting of safrinha corn, safrinha corn and cotton, about half of it's going to get planted now that the ideal planting window is closed. And we're seeing very wet conditions in eastern Brazil and through here over the next 10 days. And the last 7 model runs have painted southern Brazil and Argentina on the drier side of things. So that could present some problems for southern Brazil and Argentina in the future. We need to keep a very close eye out on that to see if any sort of damage emerges from these much drier than average conditions in the forecast through the next 10 days and to see how long it lasts, because the longer range European model paints almost this exact same picture for March 10th through April 10th. So we're going to keep a very close eye on these global weather pressures, keep reporting them to you here. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again next Monday. Thank you.